Thank you very much for the introduction. I don't know if you wanted me to speak about property. That wasn't what I got planned, and if you do want to know about property, then I'm happy to tell you about that afterwards. What I really wanted to do was share with you not so much my story, but what I learned from property investment and from my journey, because I think that's actually more interesting. When I listen to my own story, because it was mine, it sounds boring, it sounds uninteresting, and it's hard to imagine why anybody would want to hear what I went through over the last few years. There's gory bits, there's happy bits, isn't there, in everybody's life? But I think what is interesting to me is what I've learnt in that process, and that's what I'm planning to share with you this evening. So, as part of a metaphor for that, the books that I've already written have really helped me recognise that there's almost this cycle that we go through. So when I wrote my very first book, I was totally obsessed in what we do. And I wrote about investment strategies, property investment strategies, because that's what I was doing, and that was what was obsessing me at the time, what I do. And then I started to reflect on that, and I was in a position where I started to realise that I had learnt stuff by what I'd done. So I wrote my second book, and my second book was all about what I learnt by doing what I had been doing. And then my third book, Property for the Next Generation, is actually what that all meant. It doesn't really matter about the investing in property. What matters is that I have learnt, and I can be quite opinionated about it, is that I feel that we are doing it all wrong with money, and we're doing it all wrong with property. We're completely obsessed in this country about wanting to own our own houses. But actually, even Eamon just described himself as a nomad. We are completely obsessed, for those of you in the room who are parents. So there's plenty of parents in the room who think that by being a parent, that what you want to do is leave your property that you have worked so hard for to your children. Would I be right?
That's true.
And then if you've got more than 2 children, the first thing they're going to have to do is flog that house. And unless you know something that I don't know about the exact right moment in the property cycle to die, it's not necessarily going to be the right moment to be selling the property. But we're obsessed with this, aren't we? And we use this term about our houses being an asset, and they're not. They're a liability. Even if you clear your mortgage, when it comes to going down to Tesco's to buy that bread, you cannot take a brick out of your house and hand it over at the counter for a loaf. It doesn't work like that. So what I started to recognise is that I live in a world, and you said about it here, about heart-centred entrepreneurs. That's not the environment that I tend to circle in most of the time. In the property world, the first question that someone will say to you is not, hello, what's your name? How many properties do you own? Would any of you dream to go up to anyone here and say, so how much did you get in your last paycheck last month? You wouldn't have that conversation with someone. But somehow in the property world, it's all right to be all this talking about money, and the more is better. That's not necessarily true. It's about the quality of life that you're experiencing. And that's what you've heard from a lot of people here, that they've got over their hurdles because it's about the quality of life that they want to live. It's not about the number of properties that you own. So I started to look above this, and I started to really think in my quiet moments. I do a lot of stuff with water. So basically I have really great ideas in the shower, and then what I have to do is hang on to them desperately until I can get out the shower, dry my hands, find a pen and paper, and if anybody could invent sort of like a chart thing that I can have on the shower wall with one of those pens that, you know, won't rub out when I'm busy in the shower, then that would be perfect. So that I can
Get
yourself a divers. Well, do you know what? I'm a scuba diver. I never even thought of that. What a numpty! Oh, you're a genius. Yeah, so I shall have my little thing in my hand and do that. So, so what I was starting to do was have these ideas basically when I'm connected to water, and I can't remember who it was. Annika, who was saying about that grounded moment. I think that when I'm in water, that's what grounds me. It's slightly inconvenient tonight in that I had to be in water probably 5 hours ago, so then I've got to hang on to that groundedness before I can come here. But so what I started to recognise was these 3 values that have really come up for me. And it came about in April when I was working with my mentor, and I said to him, I'm bursting another book. I'm bursting for another book. And he said, all right, well, let's go through it. What do you want to write about? Who's it for? Why will it be of relevance to them? And we started to undo this through a coaching session. And then miraculously, as things do happen, the next week there were 3 days in the middle of my diary, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, when my daughter who works with me was away, and I literally just sat down and wrote the book, and a month later it was published. And it's a story. It's completely unlike these. These are fact-based. These are all about teaching you how to invest in property. This story is called The New Estate, and it's called Insights from the 22nd Century. And it's a story about a world 85 years from now, completely my invention. It's either inspired foresight or lunacy, depending on whether you like the book or don't like the book. Hopefully you'll all like the book, and plug, give it 5 stars on Amazon. Don't bother if you're not going to give it 5 stars. But you know, of course, any stars would be gratefully received. And the book is told from the voice of the woman in the future. And she weaves backwards and forwards to the present day, thanking all of you for the things that you have done differently that have enabled her to live in the world that she lives. And it's a world where there is no housing benefit. There are no benefits of whatsoever, because we don't need to give handouts to people because everybody contributes. There's no social housing because we don't abdicate responsibility to the government to house people. We pick people up off the street. We care for our neighbours. We seem to have forgotten all of that somewhere along the way. There's no celebrity status. There's no celebrity wages. We don't pay some bloke millions of pounds to kick around a piece of rubber or leather or whatever it is, because apparently that's good on a Saturday or something. We value teachers. We value doctors. We value people who are in the armed forces. We value those things that matter to us as a society. And somehow we seem to have thought that being on telly, you know, it's sort of all that fakeness that Claire was speaking about. We seem to have got wrapped up in this fakeness, and with that, our money goes that way to the detriment of others. And so what came out of that were these 3 words: responsibility, enough, and contribution. And I know I've only got 10 minutes, so I'm going to have to go really fast because I think I've probably got 2 left. So responsibility is this idea that everything that you have in your life right now is as a result of either the actions or the inactions that you have taken. Who's happy with their life right now? Honestly. Superb. Can I say I asked that same question in front of a couple of 100 property investors and 1 person put their hand up? Really, saddos, sorry. This is on video, I shouldn't have said that. No, quite frankly, you know, if you're not happy, it's just a thought that you're having. Get over it. How can you not be happy? Who's got clothes on? Including Claire? Everybody's got clothes on. Fabulous. Who's got shoes on their feet? How many people in the world don't have shoes on their feet? How many people will you go past outside? Homeless people that will have holes in the shoes. Who's got socks on with their shoes and their boots? How many homeless people don't have socks? Who's got actually a home to go to? Oh, you stop putting your hands up now. You're all homeless. You know? So we have plenty of stuff. And maybe that's where we need to think about responsibility. We start to need to think about the concept of enough. So you've all paid to come here this evening. So even without meeting you, I can guarantee that you all have enough. Would you agree that you have enough?
Yes.
Some of you will probably like more than enough. Would that be fair?
Yeah.
Some of you might even like much more than enough. Would that be fair? Yeah. And that's perfectly okay. I do not want to limit you in any way. What I'd like you to do is recognise that you have enough now. And when you have enough now, then you can start to contribute. Contribution doesn't have to be for free. You can charge for your contributions. Contribution doesn't have to be about handing money over to a charity and with that abdicating the responsibility as the loop comes back round for someone else to do something for somebody else. When you bring these 3 things together, you take responsibility for everything in your life. You recognise when you have enough. And with that, you start to contribute in whatever way works for you. Sharing your knowledge, sharing your ideas, passing on a nice word, like we all just did, giving one another a hug. Sharing that look that means something to someone to say, do you know what, you matter to me. How many times do we walk past people and we don't even acknowledge them, and then we wonder why some of the speakers this evening spoke about being depressed? I can't remember exactly who it was because there were so many great speakers, but someone said, look at somebody. That could be the moment you saved their life. Was that Susie right at the beginning? You know, was that you? You know, phenomenal thing. How many of us are walking around and you see people doing it with phones in their hands and the earplugs in their ears? Worse, how many of you have seen mothers pushing buggies, speaking on their phone and not to their children? What is that going to do for generations to come? If we don't start valuing one another, if we don't start reacting in relationships with one another, and we keep thinking that just by voting or not voting, somebody else is going to do something, we are going to leave such a horrible world for our children and our grandchildren and our great-grandchildren. And then that story of the new estate, where that woman Maria tells her story and thanks you for all the things that you've done, won't come true. Now, I don't think I've got everything right in the book, because it was just me on my own having those thoughts. And what I want to do in the new year is start a podcast where I can interview people and have conversations with them. And out of that, maybe we'll write better chapters. That's why it's a Kindle, because I don't want to commit to printing 100 or 1,000 of the book. I want to be constantly changing the book. And what if I came back here 2 years later, or maybe it'll only take a year, and we've rewritten the chapters of the book, and it's almost like our manifesto for the world that we want to create. And then we can turn around to government and say, you stop thinking up silly ideas. We've all got together. We know stuff. We've done personal development. Not sure if any of you MPs have done. We're entrepreneurs. Not sure if any of you MPs are. We hold down jobs. We live in the real world. And this is what we want our future to look like. And we've started writing it in this book. And that's what I would quite like. And so the 3 words I want you to remember: nobody can make you happy but you. Nobody can change anything in your life but you. And you've heard that from all the previous speakers. It's about taking responsibility. And if there's one thing I could say to you that was maybe slightly different from the speakers here, is don't believe, and I mean, what was yours, the brat? Don't even give the brat a name. Let the brat go. For as long as you're holding on to the brat by giving the brat the name, he'll stay around to talk to you. He's something from the past and he's irrelevant. Look at what you have become. You are an amazing speaker. The brat has no place in your life. And whatever you call that voice, you know, thank it. It's a memory from the past, and let it go. It's not relevant to who you are now, unless you've got a lesson to learn, in which case, learn the lesson, get on with it, take responsibility, let the brat or whoever it is go and move on. And then please remember, every minute of the day, just how much you have. You have enough. Many of you have much more than enough. Never mind, more than enough. And then start looking at the ways you can contribute. And what I'd really like to ask you to do is to join with me in an exercise that I'm asking everybody to do. Would you get your phones out, please? For the technologically challenged, you may need to gaze at a young person who's near you. I usually get my daughter to help with things like this. Okay, so with your phones, what I would really like you to do is to set an alarm. And my biggest challenge to, I've forgotten how to pronounce your name, but the lady from Maidenhead, is I asked you to do this Monday, week ago. You're going to do it now. Don't make me come back and tell you to do this, right? I want you all, see how naggy I can be? She didn't do it last week, right? I've made her come here so I can nag her from the stage. I'd like you to all set an alarm. And the important thing is that you set the alarm at 3:33, and I will explain why. So go to the clever piece on your phone to set an alarm. And what you're going to do with the alarm is you're going to ask yourself a question. So that tomorrow when your phone rings at 3:33 in the afternoon, obviously, is the phone is going to say to you, what have you done today to make the world a better place? Every day your phone is going to ring at 3:33 and ask you, what have you done to make the world a better place? In the early days, you might scrabble around a little bit. You've got after 3:33 until you go to bed to sort it out if you can't think of something. Go hug someone, go say something nice to someone, go and share something, do the washing up, give your kids a story before they go to bed. Whatever it is, you can make a difference that day, even after 3:33. But I bet you it will only be a matter of days before that alarm goes off and you will be doing something at that moment. And it makes me go goosebumpy because I've been doing this for nearly 3 years now. Every time my alarm goes off, I am doing something that my phone makes me go, yeah. because it comes into you. It's an alarm. Can you imagine every day getting an alarm asking you, challenging you, what have you done to make the world a better place today? Then imagine that you're on the train, the Pick line, the Northern line, and at 3:33 one afternoon you're on the train. Obviously I've gone down a metaphor now that's never going to work because you're not going to get phone signal. Oh, phone signal's not necessary for an alarm. Even better, I'm back on track with the metaphor. So, back to where we were with the story. So there you are on the train line, juggling along. If you're lucky, you'll have a seat. And all of a sudden it'll turn 3:33 and your alarm will go. And as you scrabble in your bag, you'll hear another tone somewhere in the carriage. And someone down the carriage will also be scrabbling in their bag for their phone. And you'll both get your phones out and you'll swipe it. And you'll look at that message and it'll ask you, what have you done today to make a difference? And you'll look at that phone and you go, you know what? I've already clocked that one today. And then you look down the carriage and you'll see that other person. And you'll both know, because 3:33 is an unusual time for an alarm to go off. And maybe you'll go and speak. Maybe people in the carriage will say to you, what's all this? Why are your alarms going off? And you'll share the news. And if you speak somewhere, get everybody there, share it. It doesn't have to be my thing. Everywhere that you speak, everywhere that you go, share this. And maybe Eamon and Shay, you'll say this to everybody who comes to the Inspired stage. From now on, every time you come here, remember you're 3:33. Maybe you'll share from the stage what happened at 3:33. I've started getting emails from people sharing what's happening to them. A man who took the afternoon off to be with his daughter down the park. Who knows, at some point in the future, that might be the memory that holds her together at some challenging moment. You don't know the power of the actions and the words that you have that might ripple forward to in the future. So, 3 words. Take responsibility. Only you can make you happy. Only you can make you thin. Only you can make you love you. Only you can get rid of the voices in your head. Know that you already have enough, probably more than enough. And be happy. Take that opportunity to contribute wherever you can, and please set that alarm and then send me stories on Facebook so that we get to hear it and we start sharing this out and people will wonder what's going on.